We're going to move on, and I'm really pleased, and I'm going to add her to the spotlight. We're really pleased to welcome another guest to today's program, and Nicole Bellinger is with us today, and we're really delighted to have her. Nicole is actually the project coordinator for the Connecticut Digital Newspaper Project out of the Connecticut State Library. She's a certified archivist and has worked in libraries and archives for 10 years. And she's had the opportunity to work with various types of collections, including corporate archives, local history collections, personal papers, and religious collections. She holds a Master's of Library Science and Information Services from Simmons University and a Master's of Heritage Preservation from Georgia State University. So Nicole, we're really delighted to have you with us. I'm going to share my screen, which always takes me a moment because I'm not the quickest on this, but I'm going to share my screen. And then if you just want to kind of give me a verbal cue when you want me to switch slides, I would be happy to do so. So let me just get myself situated.
Thank you so much for that lovely introduction. I'm so happy to be here. I do want to say I have had some Zoom issues this week and other meetings. So Rebecca, definitely let me know if I start to break up or anything, and I'll turn my camera off to help with bandwidth. All right, so if you want to go to my first slide. So today I'm going to talk about mainly the Connecticut Digital Newspaper Project, but also some other digital resources offered by the Connecticut State Library, because that is where we run the newspaper project out of. As Rebecca mentioned, I am the project coordinator for the Digital Newspaper Project. I only caught a little bit of Cindy's presentation, but I saw she mentioned Chronicling America, which is where our newspapers go into from the Connecticut Digital Newspaper Project. So that was a nice little teaser. And I do have to say, I heard her discussing some really interesting points about, this is an opportunity for your students to be analyzing sources, to be learning how to evaluate primary sources and how to use them. And newspapers are a really great way for them to learn how to do that. And Chronicling America has over 17 million pages. So there's a lot of opportunity there for them to really engage with newspapers, to look at newspapers from many years over the course of US history. And it's also a great way for them to learn about newspapers as a form of communication and to evaluate them for bias, for changes over time. So I'm really excited to share some things with you guys today about our work. So Rebecca, if you'll go to the next slide, please. All right, so the Connecticut Digital Newspaper Project, or CDNP, is a newspaper digitization grant project run out of the State Library, and it's part of the National Digital Newspaper Program, which is run by the Library of Congress and funded by the National Endowment for Humanities. So we are awarded the grants in 2-year cycles, and we are currently on our 4th consecutive grant. And to date, we have digitized over 300,000 pages of historic Connecticut newspapers, which is roughly 30 titles covering a time period from 1836 to 1932. And during our current cycle, we'll actually be expanding that date range from 1826 to 1948, which we're very excited to be pushing further. So in each grant cycle, we select some newspaper titles and years that we're going to digitize. We do that with the help of an advisory board, which I'm honored to say Rebecca has joined. And all the titles that we've digitized in the past, as well as what we're working on in our current cycle, are available on our website. And I will say there's a handout that will go out to everyone with all the links that I have in the presentation. So please don't worry if you can't get any down. We also have some other resources available on our website, including some topic guides that we've put together on a few different subjects that help you learn how to search the newspapers for that topic, as well as give you background information. And then we also have links out to the inquiry-based teaching tools that we've created for Teach It, which is done through CT Humanities. So that all can be found on our website, and information about that will be on the handout. So next slide, please. So As I mentioned, and like Cindy talked about, Chronicling America is the Library of Congress database of historic newspapers, and it contains newspapers that have been digitized through the NDMP program. So they recently got up to 17 million pages, which is very exciting. The program has been going on for quite some time now. So there's really a lot of content in there. It's free for everyone to use. In just a minute, we're going to look at the website and just go over the basics of using it. In addition to the newspaper database, Chronicling America, they also have guides to using newspaper content, which they have under a page called Recommended Topics. And they're similar to our guides. They were just created by Library of Congress. So they're on typically more national topics, not necessarily specific to Connecticut like our guides are. And they also have a great help page there that not only lists FAQ, but search tips. So if you're ever wondering if I'm searching well, they've got some good tips for you there. And just a quick note, if you're on the website, navigating the website, and you suddenly see pages looking different, it's because Library of Congress is in the process of migrating and updating different parts of the website. So sometimes you move to a page that looks very different and you feel like you've left the site. That's not the case. You just got to a different section. So before we get on Chronicling America, I'm just going to talk about the other digital resources that we have at the State Library. So we've got State Library digital collections in the Connecticut Digital Archive, or CTDA. And this includes materials from both the State Archive and the State Library that have been digitized and put into that database. Items of note are State Archives materials, state government publications, and books and journals on Connecticut history. There's also Newspapers of Connecticut, which is the State Library's database for historic newspapers that have been digitized that are not found in Chronicling America, because these papers were digitized as another program, not part of this grant program. So we've got 19th century papers in there that cover topics like anti-slavery, the Civil War, temperance newspapers. And then we've also got Research It CT, and this is a collection of research databases that the library has, and you can use it with a public library card or a state library card. And those databases have reference materials, articles, and additional newspaper databases such as the Hartford Courant and New York Times post 1985. So next slide. So we'll come back to the contact us slide, but let me share my screen and we will go over Chronicling America. Oh, okay, there we go.
I'm going to hide myself.
I was going to say, it was telling me somebody else is sharing, you can't. Okay. And so how does that look, Rebecca?
It looks good.
Okay, so this is Chronicling America, which Cindy already showed us a little bit of. And if you just Google Chronicling America, this will be the first hit you get, but then there's also the link up there, and I will have that in the handout as well. So first I want to go over the main page here. As I mentioned, here on the left-hand side, you see you've got recommended topics. That's where you're going to find those topic guides I mentioned. Those are good just if you want to show your students, here's how you would take a topic and get background information on it and then formulate a search, because the guides, our guides as well, give you sample search terms you could use, as well as some of the results that you'll see in Chronicling America. They also, if your students are interested in data, or if you guys are just interested in seeing, visualizing the content that's in Chronicling America, they've got some great tools here, graphs, maps that give an overview of the years, the states covered in the database. And then the help page here has great tips if you get confused. So when you come to the home page here, you're automatically in one of the search functions, which is the simple search pages tab right here. So in this basic search, you can just enter your keyword search here and then hit go, but you can also filter it by state, or you can also filter by years. Then in your advanced search tab, you get a few more options on top of what you had in that first tab. You can still select a state, but on top of that, you can also do an individual newspaper. And so there's a lot of titles in here, so you got to scroll through a big list, but it's a really helpful search tool. You've also got the years here again, or you can pick a specific date range. Once you click in there, the calendar view is going to come up. You can do by language, and I will say for right now, our Connecticut papers are mostly English with some Italian language. So if you're looking specifically for Connecticut foreign language, it's going to be Italian. But there, as you can see here, there are a lot of other languages in Chronicling America. And then here you have a little bit more option with your search terms. You can enter it in a variety of ways. In addition to these two search tabs, you've got this fun tab, all digitized newspapers. So what this is going to do is if you simply hit go, you're going to get a full list of all 3,280 newspapers in Chronicling America. Now, that's a big list. You might not necessarily need that. So we can go back to the tab, and if we just want to see Connecticut papers, which is a much more doable list, we'll do that. And that takes you to our, I said, we had just around 30 newspapers. With title changes, it gets up to be 38 papers. So when you're on this page, what you're going to see is that these are the papers from Connecticut. You're going to see the name. This clicking this little calendar icon here is going to take you to browse through like a calendar view. You'll see how many issues of the paper we have, and then the date ranges that we have. Over here where it says more info, and yes, what that means is that we have background information about the paper and title in Chronicling America. So when you hit the title, this is basically the library record that you would see for the newspaper if you search in a library catalog on the left-hand side. But to the right, you're going to see that background information that I mentioned. We write a title essay for every newspaper that we digitize for Chronicling America. This essay short because this is a smaller run of a paper, but for these essays, we put a lot of work into these where we get good history and background on the title, including things about the editor and the publisher, maybe what viewpoint those people took when writing, what political party the paper might have been aligned with. And that can be really helpful in helping your students, learn about what kind of content they're going to find in the paper, and is there going to be any bias or anything like that. And if they want to get multiple views on a topic, they can look at which papers might have been written from a Republican viewpoint versus Democrat or independent viewpoint. If you go further back, obviously, then you're going to see the Whig party and the Federalist and that sort of thing. So those title essays can be really useful as well. All right, so let's do a quick search here. Now, some things to remember when you're searching in historic newspapers, really, this is something too for your students as they're learning to work with primary sources that they'll have to get the hang of, is that you have to remember to use historical terms instead of our modern day terminology. So for example, we have plenty of papers that cover World War I, but they're not going to refer to it as World War I. The Great War is going to work out better. Also, spelling variation is something that you have to watch out for. So, how a name is spelled, even though for sure that this person spelled Catherine, Kather, you should search for AR as well. And then if they're searching for women, even women who were prominent historically, they're going to need to search for Mrs. and then the husband's name as well as the woman's own name. And then if you're entering multiple words in your search, just try to put them in the order that you think they're most likely to appear when they're being discussed. So let's run a quick search here for women's suffrage and see, and I'm going to limit it to Connecticut. And so let's see. So we've got roughly 2,400 results here in our search, which for me, when thinking about that, we have 17 million pages here. I'm like, 2,400, not too bad. But I do know for your students, 2,400 might feel like a lot of search results. So you have some options if you want to make that more manageable. You could come to the advanced search where you see your search is already saved, and you could limit it to a specific paper. And you would just, you can go back here and reference what papers we have in Connecticut. And that's how you know which titles to pick out of this longer list. Other, you can also just scroll through it and see which ones are Connecticut papers. But before we do any limiting, I just want to show you around the search page here. So you can see you can change your view here. You can change your number of results per page, although I say 20 is plenty to look at on one page. You can also change how the results are sorted. Obviously, we've already limited to Connecticut, so state is not going to be helpful, but relevance and date to me are the most helpful ways to sort results. You could also, if you were interested in just seeing front pages of issues, you can limit that. But for this type of search, you might not want that because you're not really looking for just front page headlines. You're looking for any, pages that talk about women's suffrage. So where you see the red here on your search results, that's where the OCR, the optical character recognition software, has picked up your search terms within the individual pages. Everything we put into Chronicling America has been run through OCR software so that it can be searched in this way. So you can click on an individual page. And when you click in your search results, you're going to go directly to the page in the newspaper issue that matched with your search. You're not going to go to page 1. See here it says image 11. You're on page 11 of that newspaper. So we're in the New Britain Herald, and this is the August 5th, 1929 issue. You can see right here, image 11 of 12. So this issue's got 20 pages. So this is, I call this the page viewer. Once you get in here, you've got the option to zoom in, and then you can also do this with your mouse pad or with your mouse. Sometimes the zoom buttons give you a little bit more control. My mouse pad goes crazy when I start to do it. So you can zoom in to where you've got your search terms showing up. They keep them highlighted so you can see easily. You can zoom out. If you are like, wait, I want the page back to the way it looked, you just hit this little key, go home, and it's going to center it back in the window there. If you decide you want the page to be bigger, you hit this toggle full page button, and it gives you a little bit more room to work with, and you can zoom in and out. And then you would just hit that same button again to take your screen back down. If you want to look at other pages in the newspaper issue, you can do that either in this image area or in this page area. And hitting all pages will also display all the pages in that issue on your screen. You can also go between various issues of the New Britain Herald by hitting this as well. And if you hit all issues here, it's not going to take you just to 1929. It's actually going to take you to the earliest year that we have of New Britain Herald in Chronicling America. If you're looking to download, one good option is PDF. So you would just click PDF here, and it's going to open up the PDF for this one page. It's not for the whole issue. Everything is by page. And then I'm on a Mac, so it probably looks a little bit different. You can hit File, Save Page As, and I believe on Windows it would be File, Save As. And you can save that page and it'll download to your computer. You've also got the option of downloading the JP2, which is just a smaller JPEG file. You've also this cropping button here allows you, like if you've zoomed in to the page, you can hit this crop button and then it will crop the part of the page that you're zoomed into, and you can download that as well or print it right from your browser. So that's kind of the basics of what you're going to see on the search page. If you wanted to, if you want to go, you can either toggle through to your next, item in the search results. You can also go back to search results, and you'll notice things that you've clicked on will sometimes come up as red when you go back in. So that's helpful to keep track. If you wanted to limit this search a little bit more, because 2,400 results is a lot, you could come in here and let's see the first paper so click in this box, and I'm looking for Bridgeport. Here we go, Bridgeport Evening Farmer, Bridgeport Times and Evening Farmer. That's the same paper, the name just changed throughout its history. I'm selecting both because I happen to know that the name change during the 19 teens, which is obviously an active period for suffrage. Our title essays will go over the name changes in a paper. And if you ever have any questions about our papers, please just reach out to me and I'm happy to provide background information. You'll see, because you were in your search results, so that search you ran, when you came to advanced search, it already auto-filled your search. So you don't have to type everything in again. And then now we just have 730 results. So this is everything on women's suffrage, specifically in Bridgeport Times or Bridgeport Times and Evening Farmer. So that does parse down your results a little bit more. All the things that I discussed about navigating the results window and the page viewer here, that is going to be in the handout that I sent. So I mentioned, keep in mind when your students are searching that you want to use historical terminology, and they also want to try variations on spelling. And also, if you go look at the title essays of the newspaper, that's going to provide some really nice background information, and maybe answer some questions they have about, why was this paper writing in this way? And like I mentioned, in our current cycle, we are working on adding additional years. We're doing some papers that cover the 30s and World War II, but I don't know that those papers will be up in Chronicling America before your students will need to have their research completed. So I don't know if that'll work for this year's contest, but for next year, hopefully we will have those in early enough. But I will say we have a lot of great coverage in there that spans long enough time period that your students can, go in and look at papers from the 1800s and compare those to papers in the 20th century. And also we have papers that have contrasting views. We try to put in papers that have a more conservative viewpoint versus those that have more liberal. We also have labor papers that were written specifically for workers. And some of our papers were even considered for a more middle class audience. So we really try to do a variety of viewpoints. And we then also have some, papers that were considered just the significant paper of an area. They call it the paper of record for a specific town. So that is the basics of using Chronicling America. I'm going to stop sharing so that Rebecca can put back up that last screen in my slides. That's our contact information. So like I said, if you guys have any questions about CD&P, about using Chronicling America, please feel free to reach out to me. My email address is there on that last slide, and it's also in the handout that you will receive from me. And then if you have any questions about the other state library resources, you can contact Anna Newman, who is our digital projects manager at the state library, and she can assist you. I don't work with the other digital resources at the state library. I work solely on this grant project, but if you do reach out to me, I can get you in touch with the right person. So yeah, I hope that your students, are excited to start working with things like historic newspapers. Primary sources are, as an archivist, obviously I love primary sources, and they're a great way for students to learn a variety of things about history, not just the historical facts, but also, all kinds of minute details that they might not otherwise learn. And newspapers specifically really give them an interesting view into history, not just how things were reported, but the way people talked about things, the type of things that were important to report on, and how things were discussed. So we work really hard to choose titles and to get the material in Chronicling America that we think is going to be the most useful. And since the beginning of our grant project, we have really strived to make sure that we're making things accessible for educators, for use in social studies and history projects. So hopefully, you find Chronicling America useful, and feel free to visit our website, the state library's website. Everything is accessible through there. And please don't hesitate to reach out to me if you have any questions. And we're also happy to go over using Chronicling America with anyone, we'll speak to groups at different events. So just let us know if you have any questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Nicole, for joining us. Before you leave, I just had one question.
Hmm.
The other day I was on the state library and I noticed, I think to use some of the databases, you have to have a state library card.
Hmm.
In this time of COVID, how would someone get a library card from the state library?
Yeah.
And is it free to everyone in the state?
Yes, so state library cards are available to all state residents. They have an application, I believe, on the website because I do know that they made an adjustment for people applying for the card during COVID. And I believe that they're doing mail-in applications and then they will mail you the card. I will say the state library is unfortunately still not open to the public, but staff does come in to the building in shifts. And so, there's the phone number on the main page of the website as well as our reference desk email address. And there you will get a response if you call or email. So I believe the application, I can't tell you the exact page on the website,
Okay,
but it should be on the website. And if you don't find it, just please call or email and they'll be happy to assist you because I know that they're sending out new library cards during the
great.
pandemic.
Thank you so much. Does anyone have any questions for Nicole before she leaves us? And do send me any handouts to send out to
Yes, yes.
folks. And
I think I sent it. You were probably already
yes, I've
in
been
the
trying to
meeting.
keep
Yes,
the beeps too much in the minimum,
yes,
but thank you. I appreciate you
yes.
being with us.
Of course. Thank you so much.